Yes, ma'am. We are to go live in 1 minute.
The teacher who is indeed wise does not bid you to enter the house of wisdom, but rather leads you to the threshold of your mind. Khalil Gibran. A quintessential educator is one who holds your hand and leads you to the path of liberation. Teachers' Day honors the heart and hard work of every educator. The love, the time, and the passion that they put into nurturing a soul deserves to be appreciated and celebrated every day of the year. It is on this note that we honor one such educator, the late Dr. David Baker, who recently departed to be in his heavenly home. He was a historian, a highly renowned professor at St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, and a mentor to many. The senior most beloved professor, who began teaching in the college in 1969, was loved for nurturing many lives. To honor his life, I would request all of you to join us in a minute of silence as we remember him. Thank you. Now, I would like to call upon our founder and his student, Ms. Devyani Kapoor, to say a few words about her late professor, Dr. David Baker.
Thank you so much, Snigdha. This should not be seen as a moment of grief or a time to mourn the demise of a great educator like Dr. Baker. It's time, actually, to celebrate the legacy he created and left for his students and the generations to come. Dr. David Baker, who was a historian first and a highly renowned professor of St. Stephen's College, Delhi University, and a mentor to many, left for his heavenly abode on 23rd August this year. Our beloved professor, who began his teaching in college in 1969, touched many lives across a span of 5 decades. Today, we students of St. Stephen's College History Honors, class of 91, along with our dear professor, Dr. Malin Neerav, have gathered here to pay tribute to our beloved professor. A quintessential educator who truly went beyond textbook and for whom teaching was not just a profession, but a passion. And that defines the biggest legacy which lies in forging unconditional bonds with so many students, those whom he taught and those whom he didn't. And of course, there was a list of his favorites, some of whom were with him and in touch with him till the end of his life. Unfortunately, I was not on the top of the list of his favorites, but today on Teachers' Day, I do wish to reflect upon what a great teacher Dr. Baker was. Dr. Baker's love for history was unparalleled. Each one of us can vouch for. A researcher par excellence, he wrote many books and was writing the history of college. I have some very clear memories of his arriving early to the class, room number B on the ground floor of the St. Stephen's corridor. Many a times we saw him diligently drawing the map of Europe on the board while letting us all in. He would often come early when we reached the class. His lectures were meticulously planned and conducted. I vividly remember him walking in the class with a bunch of books, and who would not remember his signature note cards with a handwriting that was small but very clear. A strict disciplinarian, he conveyed to all of us when he walked in the class that he meant business. And I doubt any of us dare bunk his class. I will just narrate a very small anecdote as I don't have too many. So, being the topper of my school in class 12th, I used to take pride in that. But the first tutorial I submitted to Dr. Baker gave me the reality check of my life. The tutorial was returned with many corrections, with some spelling mistakes highlighted, and a mark that gave me shock. I think it was 3.5 out of 10. He seemed extremely disappointed with my work, but with great patience, he said, "This is copied, Devyani. Where is your perspective?" With a quarter of a smile, he managed to convey almost all his emotions. A historian has to have his own perspective. Do you understand? That day, he taught me a great deal, not just about history, but about life. He taught me that if I ever decide to reach somewhere, I must have my own perspective and stand by it. It's my honor today to pay tribute to this great mentor who lived for nearly 99 decades, that will be cherished forever by each and every student of his. And now I invite another of Dr. Baker's students and our beloved professor, Dr. Malay Nirav, Head Department of History, Mass Communication, and ex-Dean St. Stephen's College, to speak a few words about our sir. Over to you, sir.
This eminent panel of educators that I see here, my fellow Stephanians, people who are watching this program through the links which have been provided very diligently by Devyani, and Devyani on top of all that, who showed this gesture of organizing this tribute, paying little session for Dr. Baker. I joined as a student at St. Stephen's College in 1980. It was a roller coaster ride for me because I was a biology student. I was selected to study medicine at All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Jipmer, Pondicherry. And then I decided not to do medicine and I had to come to Stevens to do history. I'd not done history before. I'd done history the way anybody and everybody does till class 10th. And the first person I encountered in my class was Dr. David Baker. And that gentleman has left an indelible mark on my personality, my character, my learning abilities, my qualities as a teacher. Howsoever hard I have tried to emulate him, I find it extremely difficult to do that. But I do remember that he defined the educator, not the teacher, the educator. And this is something which has attracted me towards EduDevs also, because the way Devyani has been talking about educators. We all know the difference between a teacher and an educator. We all know the difference between studies and education. We all know the difference between literacy and education. Dr. Baker personified the qualities of an educator in several ways. First, we had left our homes far, far away, and we were here and in a very unique, very secluded, isolated, very different kind of an environment where, coming from a small town, we had all kinds of issues and problems with ourselves, with our adjustment. Now, this gentleman, Dr. Baker, he did not only teach us history, he first taught us how to live happily. That was the lesson that he gave us first. When he was teaching in a class, he was a different man. When he turned your tutorial, there were so many crisscrosses, arrows, and zeros, and question marks that you would get completely disappointed after looking at what the hell is it this that has been returned to me. But he inspired you to write, correct, to come back to you time and again. Till such time as he was happy and you were happy, neither he would give up nor he would let you give up. That was the first great quality of this man. You know, he was an Australian. He came from Australia in 1969 after doing his PhD from the university, Australian National University of Canberra. And he decided to settle in India, in St. Stephen's College, in the hallowed... Sorry? Am I not audible?
No, you carry on, Professor. I think it must have been some unknown disturbance. Yeah.
Right. Yes. So, you know, that was Dr. Baker. He adopted this country, he adopted the institution just for the love of the students and the people and the habitat that Stephens meant to him as the most kind of desirable, livable place, just because he used to mingle around with us all the time. You know, he was a strict disciplinarian and he would take very strong action against you, but he would forget about it the very next moment. There are a whole lot of anecdotes which all of us have in our bags from Dr. Baker's life and his interaction with us, but I will just summarize everything in 2 or 3 sentences. A man who was, I should say, monstrously immaculate. A man who always used the fountain pen with the thinnest nib and wrote as if he was writing on the certificates, which he would preserve forever. He loved his writing and he loved his typewriter. Once somebody tried to introduce him to the laptop, he threw it away after some time and said, "It is not my cup of tea. I'm happy with my typewriter all the time." Here was a person who had a strange kind of a rule that his main door of his block, where he was a tutor, had 2 doors. So long as one of the 2 doors was open, you could knock and enter. He was accessible for most of the time, except when he was resting. And all of us, like Jayant, Tejveer, Neeraj, we would remember him for a variety of things, amongst other things. The coffee which he kept, because he knew I didn't take tea, so he had coffee of a special kind. He used to mix chocolate with the coffee just because he thought the students would enjoy that kind of a coffee, and he himself liked it, a sweet tooth. And he had those biscuits and cookies with him, which he would easily, very happily share with all of us. He asked us about our parents most of the times. He loved my mom because he lived on the same campus where I'm living just now. He used to come and meet my mother every afternoon. He would get himself invited without me inviting him. He thought I was a nikamma, nalayak, who never stayed at home. So he was just trying to, am I not audible? Am I just not audible? Hello?
No, sir, you're audible. You're audible, sir. You're audible.
I'm just trying to wind up in a minute. Now, what these qualities, which I have just narrated before you, these are not, I'm not talking about it in terms of the qualities of a human being. I'm talking in terms of the qualities of a teacher. A teacher who develops a special relationship with his student, not only by virtue of exchange of notes and textbooks and knowledge, which he does in the class so diligently as he did, a teacher who also takes care of your personal needs, your emotions, your emotional wellness, a teacher who tries to keep you informed and seek all the information from you to make your life happy, a teacher who does not forget about you after you have left him, a teacher who remains in touch with you till his last breath, a teacher who wishes to be buried in the place where he met you for the first time. And he has been laid to rest on this campus. I often, ever since it has happened, whenever I pass through the chapel, I see Dr. Baker there smiling at me and saying, don't think I'm not here. Don't ever try to cross the lawns. Don't do things which Stephanians are not supposed to do. And don't overshoot the time which has been given to you. And that's how I must finish, because Divyani had given me 3 minutes. I think I've taken 4 minutes. 1 minute was gone just trying to see if my connection was working all right. Thank you very much, and rest in peace, Dr. Baker. Dr. Baker, you have attained immortality by personifying the spirit of a good educator and the spirit that is so Stephanian, which we all identify as Stephania. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was profound. I now request Mr. Jayant Singh, Vice Chairman of Delhi-based Inland Waterways Authority of India, and my very close friend, batch of 91, to share a few words.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Devyani, and greetings to Dr. Malay Neerav's Teachers' Day, sir.
Thank you.
I won't really talk too much about qualities of Dr. Baker as a human being. I mean, he was definitely an exemplar in more ways than as an educator. The fact that he could touch people's lives so profoundly, so intimately, across decades, across generations, is quite evident from the kind of tributes and the surge of emotion as one has witnessed in the 23rd. It's remarkable for a man whose relationship with his students or the faculty was so minimalistically transactional, as we understand today, even in the world of academia. It's quite. I mean, I don't think I'll be able to. In my lifetime, I've seen someone like him. So minimalistic, so profound. And I mean, he commanded so much respect, so much discipline without actually having ever to raise his voice. So I'm just keeping those personal things aside. Just want to concentrate on his bit as a teacher, which has really impressed me so much. Now, teaching history in St. Stephen's, teaching history otherwise in India, in DU, in St. Stephen's is not easy, because you have the most eclectic, so to speak, mix of students. There are people who are genuinely interested in the subject. There are many who take up history for other reasons. There may be, the sporting variety, or, learning of history is totally incidental. So you have a big group to teach history. And then the paper that he taught, and this is where I really want to, focus, the paper that he taught, Rise of Modern West, is not an easy paper to teach. First of all, why it is important, a lot of the world that we live in today, the idea, the institutions that populate our world, our thoughts and everything, are very much an outcome of what really transpired in those 3 or 4 decades leading to the Enlightenment and leading to the rise of to the modern Europe, the modern history as you understand. But a lot of it, the preparatory work, happened in those 3-4 centuries. Weaving it all together in a tapestry in a very, very coherent kind of a narrative is not an easy job, which he did with so much aplomb. And as Devyani mentioned, using the map so effectively, using the reading, making out chits, handing out the cyclostyle notes, preparing a question bank, sharing it with everyone, and making everyone write it to you, and then evaluating it so diligently. And a lot of us wrote utter nonsense. But the fact that he was so patient with all that is something incredible. Now, of course, his qualities as a human being would definitely account a lot for that. But the point is, the guy who is working on central India is teaching rise of modern Europe, something so different, so divergent, and yet his pandit, the command over that discipline was incredible, and all that without any fuss, without any sense of superciliousness or arrogance, which normally people in this, when you are in the business of knowledge, if you have more than others, you do that sense of arrogance creeps into you. His humility was just too much. I mean, I've never ever come across a Gandhian like him, and in so many ways more Gandhian than many people who profess to be Gandhian. His minimalistic attitude of life, I think, something all of us can imbibe. The fact that he could carry himself off with so much grace and dignity till the end. I mean, kaun hai aaj ki tareekh mein? I don't know. I don't see any exemplar like that. There are people with so many fallibilities. I can't think of any fallibility in Dr. Baker other than, of course, his reluctance. I wouldn't call it disdain for technology. So anyway, I mean, I've cried enough, so I won't, say these things. Jahan bhi, rest in peace. Of course, I don't think he'll be resting in peace. Knowing him, I mean, he'll be doing something. And I'm sure he's watching all of us, and he's affected me so profoundly. If I could ever be 1/10 of a teacher like he was, I think it will be, it'll be an absolution. Thank you, Devyani. Thanks for your time. And once again, thank you all the teachers in the group and my fellow Stephanians and Dr. Neerav. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jayant, for bringing Dr. Baker's class alive. And on a lighter note, I must tell that we are all speaking except Dr. Malay Neerav in the order of our roll call. Next, I would request, yes, lest any of you may get hurt. Next, I would request Neeraj Verma, another of a very close friend, and of course, classmate.
If you don't do that, Devyani, if you don't do that, you will get a handwritten note from Dr. Baker, mind you.
I know. Yes,
for breaking the order.
He is Group General Manager, Operations and Business Development, Dedicated Freight Corporation of India Limited, New Delhi. Over to you, Neeraj.
Thank you so much, Devyani. A very good afternoon to Dr. Malay and my friends Tejveer and Jain, and to all the eminent educators who are on this panel. Just to speak from where Dr. Malay Neerav has just left off, is to receive a handwritten note. It has been a very strange experience that 3 days after attending the funeral of Dr. Baker, I did receive a letter from him 3 days after attending his funeral. So it really gave me the goosebumps, and now that this memory has got revisited, I still feel a bit of a strange thing that comes over both my heart and emotions when I think of Dr. Baker. Dr. Baker and I have been far more of a friend. I have interacted with him practically each year, at least twice or thrice a year, ever since I left college. So while others have spoken about him being as an educator, I would speak out about the friend that was the educator in him. He had two very pet sentences. In India, we tend to respect our elders slightly too much. The second was that it is the zamindar's children who are coming to college, and they bring their habits along with them. So they need to be wrapped a bit on their knuckles as we go along. So when we often see Dr. Baker in his disciplinarian role, very often these lines keep coming back to me. When I was posted at Bikaner or Jaipur or Firozpur or several other places, then he had come and visited me in my house there. And in fact, he took time to come to my parents' house in Patna also. So I'm just trying to underline that the friend in the educator was what I interacted with and what I remember most about. His interactive way of trying to teach history. Because with him, I have, during college and subsequently, gone through several so-called historical walks, which are a fad these days. way back in late 80s and early 90s through Kashmiri Gate, through Roshanara Bagh, where he, told me that, Aurangzeb's daughter is buried there and how the entire history of the place had come about. Through Mori Gate and through the, Khuni Darwaza opposite the old IIT Delhi campus, where hundreds of mutineers or soldiers of the Indian Army were hung. Life and history is a very strange subject. As Jayant correctly pointed out, it's very difficult to teach, but it's very easy to live. And when you get there, where such events actually took place, they leave a kind of an indelible imprint, which becomes almost a part of your personality. To me, he defined Stephania as we knew it, as we have lived it, as we have loved it, and as we very proudly are a part of. Stephania was not only college, but a certain level of integrity to whatever work that we attempted. Dr. Malay Nirav is again a great example of that. We've had eminent educators coming out of St. Stephen's College, and we are very proud of that. I mean, and I met him last about a year back, just before the COVID thing began. I remember at India International Center, where he was wearing his braces, and but he was still his brave man with his uncompromising values, which I remembered from college. So, not taking any more time than I already have. I would again thank Devyani for giving me this opportunity to share my memory of a very, very special human being who walked with me in more ways than one through my entire years through college and beyond since 1988. And he is more of a classic example of what education can do to you through friendship and by living history than anything else. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neeraj. That was really important. I was thinking about it since the time you showed that letter to me, which you received posthumously after his death. So I now invite another of a very close friend and a classmate, Mr. Tejveer Singh, Principal Secretary to Honorable Chief Minister, Punjab, and in addition, Principal Secretary, Civil Aviation. Tejveer, I'm sure when I'm reading all these titles, our professors would be so proud of us. Please, it's all yours.
Thank you, Devyani. Our teacher, Dr. Malay Nirav, my friends from class, Jayant and Neeraj, and very eminent educators who have joined for this afternoon session. First of all, let me add my own words of deep condolences on the passing away of a very beloved teacher, Dr. David Baker. Ladies and gentlemen, St. Stephen's is a great institution that we've all been privileged to be associated with. But this institution has been made great by some very fine people, one of whom was Dr. David Baker. In fact, may I say that Dr. Baker was quite an institution in himself. So let me quickly share a couple of vignettes from my association with Dr. David Baker. Dr. Baker was my block tutor in Rudra South when I joined college and residence in 1988. Like many of you have already said before me, his personal and well-drafted notes, sometimes typed, but quite often written in a fine, firm hand. Letters that he sometimes wrote to us during vacation and inviting us over for tea are very abiding memories. He also had his own threshold for noise in the block. You can well imagine first-year students tend to be quite rowdy. But it's very interesting that he would impose a general discipline without necessarily cramping the exuberance of youth. So I think there was a level up to which things were allowed, but beyond that, Dr. Baker would come down with a fairly firm hand. The second thing relates to him as a teacher. And like Divyani said before me, and so have Jayant and Neeraj, I can very vividly recall him drawing the map of Europe on the board for every class of modern West. And now I can say that he understood the importance of geography while teaching history just so well. His tutorial sessions, like some of my friends have already said, were most painstakingly done. He would give us very meticulously typed sheets of past years' university questions on the subject. He would give us suggested readings and would discuss the outline of each possible essay with us. And very interestingly, while assessing, when he would evaluate and give us our answer sheets, I remember how he would often end up saying a rather longish "all right" while reading something that he could not really digest. But he was always just so polite about everything with young students, never wanting to really let them down, even if he had to say something which was not so pleasant. My last meeting with Dr. Baker was around 3 years ago in Chandigarh, when he was staying as a house guest with one of our old Stephanians here. The gentleman, who's a very distinguished judge of the High Court, had invited me along with some other old college students of Dr. Baker for dinner. And before food could be served at 9:30, which, I mean, I'm sure all of you agree, isn't really a late time by normal standards, Dr. Baker had quietly dozed off in his chair. And when he was woken up, so he woke up with a very polite apology by saying, "Well, this is well beyond my bedtime." So as I conclude, may I say that Dr. Baker really personified Stephania and the values that the college espouses: of simplicity, of erudition, of discipline, of a strong sense of right and wrong, and importantly, of great love for the country. He was Australian by birth, as you mentioned before me, but he became a naturalized Indian and died here. The fact that he's remembered just so fondly is a tribute to his over half a century long association with our college and with India. It is more than just a coincidence that we pay our tribute to our beloved teacher on Teachers' Day in the presence of Dr. Male Neerav, another teacher we all greatly adore. Rest in peace, Dr. Baker, and thank you, Devyani, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts along with my old friends like you, Jayant, and Neeraj. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And what can I say? Yes, Dr. Baker truly represented the values of Stephania, an institution in himself who ignited many lives. And for him, the only lines that come to my mind are Lord Tennyson's lines: "Men may come and men may go, but I go on forever." Yes, Dr. Baker, your legacy that you have left, the trend that you have set, will forever inspire and be imprinted on the hearts of generations to come. Thank you so much for joining in. Really indebted to each one of you. And I hand over now the session to Ms. Snigdha. I request my dear friends to be a part of this session. But thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much, everyone. Rest in peace, Dr. Baker. Thank you. Over to you, Snigdha.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Hello and good afternoon to everyone. I am Snigdha Khera, and firstly, I'd like to wish you all a very happy Teachers' Day and extend my warm welcome to all of you to our special annual webinar, The Quintessential Educator, Beyond the Textbook. Without further ado, let me introduce our panelists. We are humbled to welcome Mr. A.P. Sharma, Principal, Birla Public School, Doha, Qatar, on our panel today. With over 30 years of experience as a leader and academician, he has been the recipient of the Exemplary Leadership Award from Mr. Pranab Mukherjee in 2018. Founder member of Academic Committee QM Qatar, Mr. Sharma is an expert on design thinking and acclaimed for conducting hundreds of workshops on educational pedagogies. We welcome you to the Teachers Day webinar, sir. We have among us Dr. Ashok Pandey, Director, Alcon Group of Schools and Chairperson Council for Global Citizenship Education. He has spent more than 3 decades in the education sector, pursuing innovative ways to impart knowledge, values, and joy of learning. Mr. Pandey has been a successful principal, author, speaker, researcher, and facilitator. He is a recipient of the Rice Fellowship from Southampton University, UK, and OP Jindal Global University, India, and is passionate about bringing a change in the education sector. We are honored to have you on our panel today, sir. Next, we are honored to welcome Dr. Benno Kurian, who is presently working as the principal of International Indian School, Abu Dhabi. He carries with him almost 13 years of experience in providing the vision and leadership required to ensure a high-quality education for pupils. Recipient of the Outstanding Principal Award from Pearson, UK, Dr. Kurian has been acclaimed for exceptional leadership and management. We welcome you, sir. I'm delighted to introduce you to our esteemed panelist, Maheshwara Chaitanya ji, Chairman of the Undergraduate Admissions of the School of Engineering, Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham University. Maheshwara ji has more than 15 years of teaching experience in the field of computer science and engineering. And a dynamic expert in his field, Chaitanya ji also serves as the contest director for International Collegiate Programming Contest. His humility, expertise, and ideologies continue to inspire us all. We are honored to welcome you, sir. And lastly, I heartily welcome our moderator for the session, education evangelist, Ms. Devyani Kapoor, a former principal, author, and passionate edu leader. Ms. Kapoor carries over 3 decades of experience in the education sector. A pragmatic thought leader, she is the founder and CEO of EduDev, School of Inspired Teaching and Learning. Accredited for introducing numerous innovative pedagogical techniques, Ms. Kapoor has created new benchmarks in the field of education. Welcome, ma'am. I want to take this opportunity and give my unconditional gratitude to Devyani, ma'am, one of my teachers, from teaching me in class to mentoring me in the office. She is one person who has always believed in me and trusted that I could do better. Thank you so much for your guidance, ma'am. I could never thank you enough. Lastly, before I hand over the floor to Devyani ma'am, I'd like to request everyone to stay tuned till the end as we'll be announcing the winner for our contest, The Teacher in Me, where educators from across the globe have shared their experiences of the digital era, and our quiz, Know the Quintessential Teacher, on Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. Thank you. Devyani ma'am, I hand over the stage to you.
Thank you, Smigna. And it's a marvel to see you speak. And thank you so much, my dear. So without much ado, we begin today's webinar, The Quintessential Educator Beyond the Textbooks. As every year, the day to wish teachers is here. It is the occasion to remember the teachers and applaud their contributions towards overall development of the students. Today, EduDays, continuing the tradition of honoring our gurus, is back with their annual Teachers' Day webinar. That has become now a ritual for us. Last couple of years have been a game changer for educators. Teachers reinvented themselves. The pandemic helped them invent into this new normal, adopting and adapting to technology. They have embraced the unknown and reincarnated into Educators 2.0. People who did not change for about 4 decades picked up learning, teaching online, and came out with flying colors. They have been on the front lines, almost like warriors, balancing the changes in curriculum, new teaching methodologies, student connect beyond the school hours, and social outreach. They are everywhere walking in the step with their students. We today honor these warriors from the education industry. put the format in front of you, we will have 2 rounds mainly. The ice-breaking round, the same question being addressed to all our panelists. And second round is a specific round where a specific question round where a question is addressed and we seek the educator's perspective on that issue. The 21st century curriculum is beyond the textbooks driven, teacher-centered, paper and pencil schooling type of curriculum. A great education is one in which the child learns to observe and predict, understand, think critically, and so on, and builds his own relationship with the society. Often the term experiential gets thrown around and becomes a kind of a buzzword by the schools that focus overtly on being so without even understanding the purpose of actually doing so. We see children who face an application vacuum where they do random experiential activities without retaining much of what actually they've learned. My question to all our esteemed panelists is, how do educators go beyond their textbooks and bridge this learning vacuum while imbibing the requisite 21st century skills? I pass this question first to Dr. A.P. Sharma, followed by Dr. Pandey, then Chaitanya ji, and then Dr. Kurin.
Thank you, Devyani ma'am. First of all, happy Teachers' Day to all. One of my senior, Mr. Pandey, is sitting here. Special regards to him. The question is very interesting because in education, it is said that after every 10 years, things change. I don't know how come we are sticking to 21st century skills. Skills do not change in centuries, the skills change in just 10 years, decades. Now, when you are talking very aptly about education 4.0, this means we are looking towards 2025 and 2030. And the whole equation is changed. Just within 2 years, you would have observed that all those things which nobody anticipated, which nobody foresee has came in practice. And experiential learning, these terms changed. These were always there. I would like to say that now for 2025 and 30, we should prepare some good skills. And these skills for teachers and students, first of all, is ideation. Then stress tolerance, how they can tolerate the stress, cognitive flexibility. That's very important because they need to change themselves according to the situation, and as well as they need to adapt and adopt, as you said in the beginning. Decision making, conflict resolution. There are so many things, but above all, the most important thing is, yes, teacher will not be replaced by any kind of technology. But yes, a teacher who does not know the technology will be replaced by a techno-savvy teacher. So that is the need of the hour, which many of our teachers have understood. And of course, the things change, and things change dramatically. When we look at complex problems, when we look at analytical thinking, my aim is to give certain kind of set of problems which creates set of skills. And how do set of skills are created is observation. The most important thing is how we observe and try to resolve or try to involve ourselves, try to evolve that particular situation so that we can come to the conclusion. So the basic idea is observing and inference. Right from kindergarten, if we give children to observe things, you will find such kind of things which are unnoticeable by teachers who consider themselves as teacher. I learned so many things from my children in KG when they come out with a different idea. Apple was falling on head of many people, only not Newton. Newton was not special. He was special because he could observe. And so many things in nature are happening every day, every moment, every second. Only thing is how to observe. Recently, a few days back, I met the chairman of International Science Olympiads. And he came to me and he said, Mr. Sharma, what you say, the observation and inference, because in most of my talks, I put stress upon these 2 points. He said, it's very true. He said, I did one experiment, how to make oxygen in laboratory. And I told children to observe and write. Can you tell me how many observations would have been there? I said, sir, it would have been around 100. He said, still you are very generous to say 100, but there were around 172 observations from that one particular experiment. And that too among 10 students. This means every complex problem, every situation has various ideas, various dimensions to look at. And when you make a group of students who can collaborate, who can discuss, you will find many ideas coming out. And that is the skill, thinking out of the box. As I said, design thinking, one of the idea. There is no box consider. All these jugards which our teacher did. I salute all my teachers, all teachers who are my colleague, and all who are becoming teachers, that during this pandemic, you have done remarkable job. And yes, we could see some teacher is using certain kind of apparatus completely jugaad in India, hanging with the fan and all that. All these skills come because the situation is created. Don't expect, don't pray that again a situation will come and we will forced to learn few more things. Rather anticipate, analyze, and try to think what else we can do without having again a pandemic. Pandemic will not come to teach us. My prayers, and once again, my deep reverence for, and of course, Shraddhanjali to Dr. Baker, the teacher today, all of you had, and I think I also met him once. I was principal in Delhi for 10 years. So it's a great remembrance and really privileged to hear about him. Thank you so much, Devyani-ji.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Very rightly said. Don't wait, rather analyze and anticipate. And now we need to look at the newer skills of ideation, stress tolerance, cognitive flexibility, all these skills that are newer skills that the teachers will have to imbibe in their students. Thank you so much, sir. It was a pleasure hearing you. Over to Dr. Ashok Pandey. Ji, sir.
Devyani ji, good afternoon to you. First of all, tell me how much time I have for this segment so that I can...
Sir, now the panel discussion today is all yours, because now because we've taken up a little more of your time. We were supposed to wind that in 15 minutes, but we exceeded, I understand. So the panel is yours and we would love to hear. The only thing is I will not be able to serve tea. Otherwise, we would have, so there, yes.
No problem, yes, no problem. So, no, I didn't want to take your time. So, Devyani, first of all, I think the occasion is a little different because we have just paid our homage to Professor Baker. I had not had the privilege of meeting him, only known him from a distance, but I didn't know that I'll come so close to his life, but unfortunately only after he has passed away. But you know, after listening to you and your other classmates and Professor Malay, a very, I don't know, a very strange idea is coming in my mind, you know, and you can take it as an advice, howsoever unsolicited it may be, that, you know, everything that has been said by your friends and who are all accomplished people doing exceedingly well in their respective careers, you know, if they just document these experiences, you can convert it into a beautiful norm and practice for teachers. And answer to all the 4 or 5 questions that you have framed today will be found in how Professor Baker taught, maintained relationship, communicated with the students, and how he taught history. You will find answer to everything. And you can convert it into a document and you can share it with the whole world. And that will be a seminal contribution that you can make. So that is what my first comment is all about.
Noted, sir. Noted. Absolutely. Yes.
And the second thing is I come back to your question, and I'm rephrasing your question again so that I can answer it in a better way. If I rephrase it differently, you can correct me. What you are saying is that there is a certain definition of learning outcome, and there is a measure of learning that has taken place. And then there is a gap, right? So that gap you have named very nicely as learning vacuum. And your question is that how that gap arises in the first place and how it can be filled or bridged. Am I right? That is your question. And my friend AP Sharma has given his perspective beautifully as to how teachers can do it, what they should do, what they should learn, what are the skills required. So I'm giving you a different perspective on that. You know, this formula is, I'm giving you a formula, 3+1 formula, right? Because people understand formula very easily these days. So the first formula is, you know, before anything is taught to the children or shared with them, or teachers interact with them, you know, two things are required. You know, these are the two caveats, two necessary conditions. And my experience is that if those two necessary conditions are not met, the learning vacuum that you are talking about will only widen rather than shrink. So the first one is the teachers and students should have the same value chain, right? They should be on the same page about the value of learning, right? You know, one of the distinguished speakers talked about, I think you or somebody else, I'm not remembering, that Professor Baker used to check your notes and with all the crisscrosses and question marks and this and that, and then he hands it over. Now imagine if his students take it differently. Oh, what this teacher has done, why this red mark? I mean, what does he or she think of himself? There is a value chain difference. And therefore the intended learning will not happen. So most of the time, I'm just giving you this example, which I heard just now, but there are many things, you know, if the teachers and children are not on the same page of that value of learning, learning will not take place. So sometimes in an ideal situation, they are on the same page. And in the most, bizarre situation, both of them are not aware of what the value of learning is, right? That is the other extreme. And in between the two things are that the teachers think that, no, this is what is more valuable. And another thing, the students think that this is more valuable. So these are the four variants to that, right? So this is the first condition. The second condition is, as teachers, because they are the adults and they are the source of knowledge, they are mandated to take the lesson to the classroom. And therefore, teachers must understand what is the expectation of the student, right? Because meeting student expectation will also result in a better learning and a shrunk learning vacuum. So this expectation is at 3 levels. What is the purpose of teaching? Why are you teaching in the classroom? And what are the outcomes that you are expecting? And what are the transformational things that you want to bring in the children? So this is the expectational spectrum. And the third condition is that, you know, in our ancient system, I think somehow we are talking of 21st century skills, but we are not talking of the ancient wisdom. I think we have to dovetail ancient wisdom in our learning system. The ability to listen, ability to practice, ability to ask questions and allowing questions to be asked, then articulating it, phrasing it, rephrasing it, reproducing it, communicating it, further study. You are talking of textbook. So further study is important. Textbook is just a narrow domain from where you can learn things. And then you make your conclusion, you know. So in the ancient wisdom, it is called shrama, you know, ashanka, you know, abhyas, avadharana, and then you conclude with further studies. So I think if these 3 elements are taken into account, we will be able to bring in more learning. But I told you 3+1. Now imagine, Devyani, if all the 3 things happen at the ideal level, then you will say that the learning will be perfect and there will be no learning vacuum. And here I come that no, there is one more element, and that is more of a scientific and scientifically proved thing is that if your learning is 100% today and there is no vacuum, after a lapse of time, let us say 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, this learning will automatically reduce to some 50% or 60%. And after another gap of same cycle, it will reduce to some more percentage. And after some time, everything will be forgotten. This is the forgetting and remembering cycle. And therefore, what is the advice? That at each dip of learning, you have to replenish it. So you have to revise it. You have to reflect on it. You have to apply it. And then you will regain a major part of the learning. And again, after some time, you are likely to forget, replenish it again. So that forgetting and remembering and practicing, that is also very, very important. So that is why in this segment, let me rest here with summarization, the 3 conditions and 1 scientific evidence. And that probably will help with all the skills that AP Sharma has mentioned, and you bring them all together, I'm sure learning vacuum can be reduced.
Great. Thank you, sir, as always. Very crisp, vivid, logical, scientific, your viewpoint, which talks about expectational spectrum. And I'm sure our educators would be hearing these, the values, the newer skill values that Dr. AP Sharma spoke about, and the expectational spectrum, which you're talking about, and they will apply in their class. Moving on to Maheshra Chaitanya ji, what is your take upon this learning vacuum that we are talking about?
Ashok ji has already stolen 2 of my points. He has already.
my apology. That is the advantage you have of speaking first.
It's okay, sir. It is really nice to listen from you because of that experience. So let me just summarize. One thing is when Devani ma'am was explaining about her experience with David Baker, and when he asked that question, what is your perspective? So how many of our teachers ask the students about the student's perspective? How many of the teachers create a thought process in the mind of the children, which is very, very important now. And I believe that the experiential learning has to start from the teachers themselves on trying out different ways in which how they can create an interest among these children on various subjects. And they have to start loving the subjects first to create the interest in the students on that subject. So again, what Dr. Ashok had said, the way in which the ancient wisdom or the way in which Indian culture is set, encouraging the students to ask the questions in the class, so that there are various ways in which the teachers can understand the level of the class. For example, when I used to ask questions, one is that there may be different viewpoints which we get from the children. Another thing is that we will understand how many of the students are really following up the concept, or how many of the students are not able to follow the concept, so that we can tailor the lectures, the future lectures, etc. Now, my final point is, now we all see that there is a reopening of schools going on, and I'm sure that the principals and the teachers are becoming the real problem solvers, because they have to think from different dimensions now, making sure that the enough arrangements are done for the sanitizers or thermal checking or different sort of arrangements, where these students will take lunch and how they will be transported. So fundamentally the principals, the teachers are forced to think from a problem solver's point of view. And they have to come up with best measures, the best practices. Some of them may fail, and then they have to find out alternate solutions. So they are actually becoming the problem solvers. So that skill of problem solving, skill of analysis is one of the most important things this future generation must have. And that is where the teachers have to strive on. So all the skills have to come on the top of that. Let the problem solving be the first skill, and let them analyze, let them think critically, so that they'll be able to apply whatever they have learned in the classroom for the benefit of the society. Thank you, Devani ma'am.
Thank you so much, Chaitanyaji. Very aptly said that unless they understand, because in a daily life, problem solving is a skill that we face at every point. So problem solving and analyzing the problem and then solving it. Of course, that is the road forward. I move on to now Dr. Kurian, and I'm sure most of the points would have been taken away, but your perspective, as Dr. Baker would have said, that how do you see it? Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Devani. At the outset, let me take this platform to pay my homages to the transformational educator, Dr. Baker. May his soul rest in peace. I am really glad to hear the different dimensions or the different perception of this question. And being the last, as you rightly said, majority of the points are being already covered. But I had to approach this question in a different dimension or in a different perspective. When you are discussing about learning gap, it's a broader concept, and how to fill the learning gap is the question which we are addressing right now. For me, I'm a clinical psychologist, so I would like to approach this question in a psychological perspective. First and foremost, active learning is the key to develop 21st century skill. How the learning gap arises, it mainly because on a practical aspect, lack of conceptual knowledge and lack of interest and the class, to be honest, the boredom which arises inside the classroom with a normal teacher's style of teaching. So for me, I have three main points or three golden rules to address this learning vacuum. First and foremost, I'm talking in the line of or in the perception of an educator. First and foremost, higher order thinking skill is the key. So the teachers should plan their classes in such a way that the teacher should use the technology to enhance, or the technology should act as a catalyst to deliver the concept or the learning outcome of the children. That's the first point. Second point, the main point is give opportunities for the students to lead their learning. That means in a different way, the autonomous learning, where the students will do, or it's a trial and error, they will do, and they will do the deductive and inductive reasoning, and they will come with conclusions. As my fellow panelists rightly said, for one experiment, there will be a lot of observations. So that is second key. And the third one mainly, which I would like to focus is to the educators. They should always keep in mind pedagogy first, technology second. Because the technology, as I said before, technology should act as a catalyst. And not at nowhere or at any point of time, technology should take or overrule or overtake their teaching and learning process. So if we go through these three aspects, we can bridge the gap between the learner and the learning outcome, and subsequently we can bridge the gap. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Kurian, very well said. And I do believe, and we were having webinars last few days back on coding and other things. And I do believe that pedagogy first and technology second, but there has to be an amalgamation of both pedagogy and technology. In today's scenario, each has to handhold and move forward. Thank you very much. everyone, for your inputs. Moving on to our second question. From the primary role of dispenser of information to orchestrator of knowledge and learning, and keeping students turn information, knowledge, and knowledge into wisdom. These are the expectations that a 21st century educator or the world has from the 21st century educator. He is no longer a dispenser of knowledge because knowledge is at the press of the button. What, according to you, are the skill set of 21st century educator to facilitate learning in this century, considering that knowledge is at the press of the button? I would pass this question first to Dr. Malini, as I've often heard him speak about a lot of adopt and adapt, otherwise educators will fossilize. Because we've had a lot of discussion over this, and my thoughts resonate with him. And then we'll move on to Maheshwara Chaitanyaji, followed by Dr. A.P. Sharma. Ji, sir. Melissa.
I don't know whether I should be speaking because it'll be like an intruder getting into the domain which is not mine exactly, because you're talking about impersonable minds where you are dealing with small kids. However, let me tell you one thing, and this is not something which I'm saying to disappoint all of you, but just to give you a clue of what needs to be done today. I teach in St. Stephen's College. You might have seen the cutoffs, mind-blowing, completely senseless. I call it absolute nonsense, absolutely nonsensical. 99.5% is the cutoff for people being called for interview. 500 would be called, 20 would be selected. So you can imagine what kind of a pressure situation this child has to handle. Now, I teach 60 students in my history honors class. My colleagues in economics teach 50 students in history honors class, and so on. Now, at the cost of becoming unpopular, let me tell you that out of the 60 students in my history honors class who are there, 40 never wanted to do history. 50 don't know why they're doing history. And all of them don't know what are they going to do after doing history. It is the same with the physics students. It is the same with the chemistry students. What do you want to do after doing mathematics? I want to do management. And after that, I don't know. Where do you go from here? Nobody knows. You ask a student, which is a subject you do not like, he's surprised. I said, well, did anyone ever ask you in your school or anywhere at home, which is a subject which you don't like? The fellow will say, no. Very surprising. Second, why are you doing economics honors? Well, my parents told me that it was the most prized course. Do you enjoy mathematics? No. Do you know that economics is pure mathematics? No. Now, this is the gap that we are trying to deal with here at the college level. And we as the school educators need to do something about it. Know that level of understanding, bringing the student on the same page that Mr. Pandey was talking about is so crucial, so crucial. First of all, you have to try and read and understand the mind of the student, rather than forcing a counselor upon him. I don't mean any disrespect to any counselor who goes and says there are 7 universities here, there are 9 there. These are the 12 courses that you can choose from, and these are the 14 law institutes, and these are the 16 private law institutes. You go any of these places, you will do well. From there, when the student comes and how do I deal with them is what all of you have said just now. I was listening to you very carefully, and let me tell you that I couldn't have got a better feedback from a school principal or somebody who's running a school than what I've got today. And having said that, let me tell you that The whole concept of the quintessential educator, all of us know, has changed completely, hasn't it? It is no longer a sage on the stage. It is a guide on the side. It is not a repository of knowledge coming to just, bombard you with knowledge, with information. Disseminator of information is irrelevant now. The information is available with him. You have to be a facilitator, a guide on the side to take him forward. And pedagogy and technological tools, there is a functional complementarity between the two. There's no kind of a conflict between the two. What was said by the first speaker, I must reiterate that we need not be afraid of technology or look at technology as something which is being presented as a competitor to the teacher. No, there's a functional complementarity between the two. And this adapt and adopt business is something which is absolutely true, If we do not adapt, then we become extinct and we get fossilized, whether we accept it or not. And therefore, we have to, and there has to be, I call it adaptive radiation. Just as in evolutionary success, there's an adaptive radiation which has to take place. If you are adapting an Alcon, which is doing so well, Mr. Pandey, I get students from your school. If you're adapting something there, then it should radiate to Dubai, Abu Dhabi, everywhere else, rather than waiting for us to receive it from elsewhere, because our demands are different, our students' perspectives are different, our bringings are different. We need to adapt and adopt, both keeping in mind that we belong to a different habitat. And this needs to be dealt with very carefully. And therefore, once again, let me summarize now in very simple words. See, a paradigm shift in pedagogical methods with tools and technology being adopted to the best possible extent in the best possible manner, while trying to strike a balance between the student's psyche and the teacher's psyche, the mindset of the students and the mindset of the teachers.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Adaptive radiation. That is what is going to be the road forward. Over to Chaitanya ji. How do you think the role of educator has transformed or will transform or should transform?
So I'll start from where Dr. Malay Nirav has stopped. Basically, he was talking about the real-time problem faced in the higher education sector, in fact. It is one of the very, very important issues faced in the higher education sector. I would 100% agree to him, whatever he has said. So at the school level, I believe the teachers shall be able to, they have to find out the real interest among the students and nurture those interests. And over and above that, the way in which they are able to convince the parents, talking to them on how the students' life or how the students' career can be shaped based on the passion they have found. Because I know a large number of students are totally confused at the 10th standard, and the teacher should be able to guide them. And as rightly pointed by him again, and from your initial address about David Baker, a teacher has to be a friend and philosopher. A teacher has to be a co-worker. A teacher has to be a guide. Then only the actual teaching happens. Otherwise, it will be a kind of instruction. Otherwise, it will be a kind of just knowledge dissemination, what you can get from the websites now or videos now. That is one side of it. And I'll bring what Benno Kurian said earlier. Technology is very, very important now. It is totally inevitable. We just cannot remove that from the teaching learning system. It is impossible for us to ignore it because it has become the part and parcel of our everyday life. But how far are we using it wisely? How far are the teachers able to use it wisely to to make their life productive, make their career productive, to disseminate the knowledge in the best way possible. So the digital literacy is one of the important skills. Why I'm saying is now till 2019 we were insisting, we were banning the students from using the mobile phone and laptop. Now we are insisting them to use mobile phone and laptop, and they are much more smarter than us. So how is it possible for a teacher to be like them or maybe ahead of them? And today, I see in the news that one of the teachers from Maharashtra, Umesh Khose, he has developed almost like 51 applications in Android platform, and he has been awarded the National Teachers Award today. So that kind of inspiration, how far a teacher can be an inspiring personality for the school children, so that their innovative mindset, or we are able to create the thoughts in their mind. They can think, they can come up with innovative ideas, and we nurture them. And then the problem of sitting in the right class will be solved. So that is what I have to say, Devani ma'am.
Thank you so much, Chaitanya. Very well said, that teachers need to be themselves source of inspiration, as you quoted the example of the teacher who devised 51 applications. I would add here that teachers also need to, in this, when they are not just dispensers of knowledge, art of discernment is something very essential. So that is an aspect, that is a trait, that is a skill which teachers need to imbibe in their students and in themselves as well. Moving on to Dr. A.P. Sharma. Ji sir, what is your take on how do you think a teacher's role has transformed in this newer times, and I would say post-pandemic, if you would like to stress upon?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting aspect to learn. Basically, just we can recall our times when the notes were given and we were supposed to write the notes. And in classes, teachers used to say, this is the answer of the question, and we expect the same answer in the answer sheet and you will get full marks. Now teachers have to a broader mindset, a growth mindset, keeping this thing that learning is not depending upon age. Rather, exponentially, the learning should happen in the classroom for both student as well as for teacher. And now CBSE and various boards have come up with such kind of innovations where the question paper is totally changed. And when we talk about various international benchmark examinations, India failed to stand anywhere. 83rd out of 84 in PISA gives a very bad impression of our education system. Thanks to the new education policy perspectives, we can expect a great change in the whole scenario can change. So the idea is that now teachers have to look at the things that they can challenge students. And they should be ready when the students are challenging them. I can still remember most of the classrooms where one-way transaction of thoughts was going on. Still, in most of the schools, there is one way of transaction. It's not like children who are asking questions are encouraged. Rather, the student who is not asking the question is considered the most disciplined child and receives the award towards end. That should change. And we should evolve a system where we encourage every student to ask a question. We never know, the child who is silent maybe turned into an Einstein or Edison, who were like a silent child in the classroom and they were never welcomed in the school. We need to find such kind of students, and teachers should have a broader mindset to say, I will tell you tomorrow, I don't know. Thank you so much.
Absolutely correct, sir. Absolutely. That, as you said, that the most silent child is considered to be the most disciplined. And the one-way transaction. Also, I would like to add here that sometimes chaos has been is often misunderstood as indiscipline without us realizing that chaos has its own beauty of orderliness. There is a lot of energy and a lot of ideas within chaos as well, if the chaos is positively channelized. Thank you so much, sir. Moving on to our next question, and this question is addressed to Dr. Ashok Pandey and Dr. Ben Kuyen. What do you think transforms an educator from a teacher in the classroom to a quintessential educator like we spoke about Dr. Baker? And I'm just reminded of so many movies. I was just talking to you, movies like Tare Zameen Par, Hichki, Super 30, Pachala, all of them, you know, there is that buzz that who is a good teacher? There is that talk about good teachers, that who, you know, there is a difference between if you want to become a good teacher or if you want to become a quintessential teacher. So Ashokji, you have had, I think, I don't know how many decades of experience. You started with an educator, principal, director. So from your own journey, if you could reflect and guide the younger generations on this.
Yeah, Devyani, I think we are talking of the journey from teacher to quintessential teacher. I'm sorry, I have not become that. But let me tell you, today we are talking about Dr. Baker, right? And I believe Professor Malay is still there. He was your teacher, right? Now, please tell me, was he popular just because he knew history the best, or he was popular for a variety of other reasons? What is your answer?
I leave it to Professor Malay to answer this. Yeah.
So, Professor Malay,
I've
just created another question within the question.
No.
To help us.
I mean, what you have been thinking is right.
Yeah.
Professors, repositories of knowledge, we have seen perhaps much better ones. People whose histories have been written and studied by thousands of historians in the Indian context. I had my teacher as R.S. Sharma of ancient, the famous R.S. Sharma. I had my teacher, Professor K.M. Shimali, D.N. Jha. These were the doyens, Sumit Sarkar. You know, these were the doyens. But not that Dr. Baker was one of those. However, as I told you, he was not only a teacher, he was an educator.
Yeah.
He knew how to strike a chord with the student. He knew how to understand and appreciate the student's issues, problems, and how to make sure that the student does not deviate from the purpose of being a good human being. That was the bottom line, rather than being a good student.
Yeah. Okay, Devyani. So that is the point that I want to make here. That first of all, once you have become a teacher, right? I think you start loving your profession, get wedded to your profession, and find out and define and make it your article of faith. That why have you become a teacher? What have you become a teacher for? Right? So love your institution, love your children, love your colleagues, right? And then love for learning yourself. If you have to be a guide on the side, as professor says, I think you have to learn yourself. And if we think that the day we have become a teacher, we are going to teach and our learning has stopped, I don't think your journey will move any further, right? So this is a very, very important aspect of it. You have to be friendly, you have to be forgiving, you have to learn how to value people around you, right? And you have to collaborate with people. So, I mean, that is how, the whole process of teacher-taught relationship will begin. So that is the first thing. The second thing, of course, you have come as a history or maths teacher. I mean, who will children look up to? You only. So you have to be a subject matter expert, SME, domain expert, as we call it, right? So anything that is required to be done to become an expert in your domain, you have to do it. Learn it, learn the new things. Every 2 years, if things are changing, you learn it. You do a course, do whatever it takes to. If nobody is helping you, you invest in yourself. Because the very fact that you have chosen to be a teacher, those are the things that go with it, right? So this is the first thing. So subject matter expertise is the must. Then comes, you start reflecting on your practice. That is my practice, whatever I know, the way I teach, the way I conduct my classroom, the interactions I have, the technology I bring, how much impact it has on children and their learning. So that reflective teacher is the next step towards becoming a quintessential teacher, right? And the third thing is, of course, it has become almost our habit. We don't bring any research and data in our classrooms. We don't ask questions. We don't allow. AP said just now that we reward a teacher at the end who doesn't ask any question as being the most disciplined child. So the metaphor should not be lost here. So that question and answer, okay, research, discovery method, project-based learning, thousands of ways are there to replace that broadcast method of teaching, I call it, a pure lecture method where children are only a passive learners and not a participant and not actively engaged constructors of the learning process. Then you are not going to be a quintessential teacher, right? But the last thing is that ultimately we are elders, particularly in a school context, the students look up to us. We are the role models, and if we really want them to be the role models and we want them to be the agents of societal change, we have to be at least a part of that ourselves. So for that, we have to ensure that we become the voice of the children, right? And then we bring children's voice in our discourse. We bring flexibility around them where they can pursue whatever they want to do. So this being an activist and voice for the societal change, voice for the children, their autonomy, their rights, their ability to learn, providing them flexibility and everything around them, I think that will make us a transformative teacher. And therefore, this journey, it looks very simple in saying, it may be difficult in doing, but at least it gives a framework and which you ask my own experience. My experience says that this framework works. So subject matter, the first is the preparation, whether you're prepared for the whole career as a teacher or not, right? And then develop your subject matter expertise, be a reflective teacher, be an inquiry teacher, and be a transformative teacher. I think you will move much closer to quintessential teacher rather than not. Devyani.
So well said, Dr. Pandey, so well said. In fact, you have laid down the trajectory and laid down that path in front of the educators. And I think I completely agree that you need to be a subject matter expert. That is the first interaction which a student has with his teacher. So unless he looks upon him, I understand that you no longer need to be a dispenser of knowledge, but the first step to that journey to become that quintessential teacher will begin with your becoming an expert in your subject matter. And secondly, what I would conclude here is, I think, and if correct me if I'm, that, our educators need to go beyond the call of their duty. They need to be passionate about it. And they should join the profession only if they are really passionate and not that they are going to balance their work and life. So very well put, 4-point formula of Dr. Ashok Pandey, and I'm sure our viewers are hearing that you need to become a subject matter expert, you need to reflect upon your practices, you need to bring in research and analysis in your classroom teaching, and finally, you need to become a role model. And practicing all these, nobody can stop you from becoming that quintessential teacher. Thank you so much, Dr. Pandey. Moving on to Dr. Beno Kurian.
Thank you. I will add to Dr. Ashok Pandey in this discussion. Look, what's the definition of a teacher as of now? I will cite my point. I would like to raise my point based on a real life situation. Last week, as usual principals do, we used to go for random classroom observations. So last week, I went to a secondary chemistry classroom where the teacher was teaching the models of atom. And she prepared a very outstanding lesson plan. She, with so many activities, she was teaching the students with a technology, of course, and with a smart board. So suddenly the smart board, some problem with the smart board, it switched off. So seeing the principal on board inside the classroom, the teacher became so bluish, don't know what to do. Suddenly a bunch of students just went to help the teacher. Within a fraction of a second, they resolved the issue and the smart board was again working. So the $1,000,000 question was, who is the teacher and who is the learner? Now, there is a paradigm shift in the definition of educator. Previously, it was a guide, then guide and a philosopher, then guide, philosopher, and a facilitator. Now we had to redefine, there is a paradigm shift, redefine the educator is a guide, educator is a facilitator, and the educator is a partner in learning. Right now in schools, especially in schools, it's a give and take. The teacher is learning something from the students in a technological perspective, and the students are learning the concept from the teacher's side. So we should understand the teachers, not all, but mostly the teachers are technology immigrants, and the students are technology natives. There is a gap between the teacher and student in technology. Even we know at home, our kids are much better in handling mobile phones and laptops than that of us. So there is a change in the role of a teacher. Then coming to the question, what changes? What is the transformational educator? So first and foremost, the teacher, or I won't use the word teacher, the educator, should be empathetic and should be able to understand the need of the students. In a classroom, there are individual differences are there. Higher order thinking students are there, or high achievers are there, middle achievers are there, and the lower achievers are there. So the teacher should identify the need of each and every child and address their capacity. And secondly, they have to be, the educator should ensure that the lessons which he or she is teaching should be practical, no more theoretical, and practical, and it is relevant to the students. And finally, the teacher or the educator should adopt, or they should adopt more sophisticated and integrated competency-based teaching to then the all aspect, because it should address the students' achievement as well as the students' social, personal, and innovative skills. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kurian, putting it and summing up, I think, everybody's points that competency and skill-based, to integrate competency and skill-based education is what is going to transform and addressing to each and every student's needs, not just academic, but also cognitive, emotional, social. Moving on to our next question. This question is addressed to Maheshwara Chaitanya ji and Dr. A.P. Sharma. We talk about Generation Z and Generation Alpha, the Generation Z being born between 95 and 2009, and most of whom do not remember a life without internet, have technology like smartphones and iPads, smart boards. Then we have Generation Alpha, born post 2010. and they've grown up with Instagram, music streaming apps like Spotify, etc. And this is going to be the first generation which is going to likely to see the 22nd century in large numbers. My question is, what changes do you suggest to the policymakers to help in the development of Gen Z and Generation Alpha students from a teacher's perspective, where it helps both of them and put them in a situation where the learning vacuum that we were talking initially is kind of reduced?
Actually, you stopped with a bit of answer, putting them in a situation. So how many of us feel that education or upskilling is a need? We talk about the passion, we talk about the interest, but how many of us feel that it is a need to upskill the children and upskill ourselves? I think the answer lies in what Ashokji had earlier mentioned, that the learning should never stop. That learning shall never stop. And the way in which the training programs, the workshops, and especially the curriculum for the children has to be framed in such a way that the educators feel that need of teaching or need of learning that first. And how is it possible for us to inspire the children? So some sort of that component must also be there in the curriculum when we define the pedagogy. So I feel it is more of an experiential thing, and I believe this national education policy that is envisaged by the government will be able to offer it to a great extent. I don't know how far they will be able to fulfill it, but at the same time, policy makers have to understand that educating the children in the right way, even from the economical point of view, right from the school. When we talk about the school leadership has to they have to think from that point that okay, the school has to be uplifted. The face of the school needs to be uplifted, so that the best education is imparted. They are able to impart the best education. So when more and more schools think in that way, there will be evolution in education system in the country. So that kind of a pedagogy has to be evolved in future. And my feel is that the policymakers should also think from some value points. Technology is not life. In fact, technology is always an aid or support. But the children shall not think that everything is dependent on technology, because now the fact is that they are not able to survive for a few minutes without WhatsApp or mobile phone. How is it possible that we can change that mindset? At least make them realize that technology is not the end of story, or that is not the way ahead. That's not the only way ahead. They have to think from different perspective, like life skills, how to maintain relationships, how to be emotionally connected, and how to be empathetic, how to be compassionate. So I feel that when the generation grows, and I have seen that the children are not even interested in meeting the relatives when the relatives come home, because they are engaged with some other stuff, playing mobile games, etc. May not be everywhere, but that is how we hear now. So that perspective has to change. So some kind of value addition has to come in education, so that education is holistic and we are able to give a perspective of life beyond the career. They are able to show some gratitude to teachers, to those who help them in learning, etc. So when the generation grows, these all things are very, very important when we talk about skills. The fact is, are we using those skills? Are the students using those skills for a noble cause or a better purpose or a good purpose? So that also is important. So that is my viewpoint and my suggestion.
Thank you so much, Chaitanya-ji. And well, I was thinking that when you were talking about technology and saying that they should be told that technology is not the way forward or the only way out. But it is really hard because our lives are rotating 24/7 around, and much more of this generation Alpha and Generation Z. So I think the policymakers and educators and leaders have to really invest a lot of time and ideologies on building up a strong and holistic personality. Moving on to Dr. A.P. Sharma, I would want to club a question which I would want all of us to then address along with this generation in it, since Chaitanya-ji mentioned about values and all. So I'll just add on a point here, sir, that a teacher has to set the goal to transform children, of today into, we expect, enigmatic personalities. Holistic development is a word which has kind of, ingrained into our blood that we are talking about holistic. But are we moving towards making them holistic personalities? What are those ingredients that you would suggest? And I would come to each panelist today before I end this question. And what is the role of teacher? Because national education policy does say that, and we all know, we've been educators, that we've been playing, and our role is very critical in education, in a student's life, and we have to tread the path very cautiously. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Devyani-ji. It's a very interesting thing that before 2020, we had education policy long back, 25 years back, and maybe again, we will expect a new education policy after 25 years or 30 years. That is incredible, somebody will say. But the problem is the things are changing so fast that we should sit after every 2 years and 3 years to analyze how far things are going. Like there are experiments which came in existence. The inventions came in existence, and after that we came to know their bad effects and evil effects. And then we tried and we worked very hard to recover from them and to just to reduce that. Corona is one of the examples. Somebody would certainly was trying to do something in laboratory, and that came out as something very miserable. Very interesting incident, I tell you, that I was taking a workshop of around 150 teachers. And I asked them a question, what do you mean by holistic? Very interestingly, out of 150, 133 teachers, holistic, they thought it's something holy. Very interestingly, and they wrote the whole paragraph about being holy. Now, it's very important that what you read, what you see, how you invoices depends upon that. That should be in the same spirit. And when those rest of the teachers who tried to find out, it's WHOLE, and it's a whole, means the overall development of the child, right from the values to skills to conflict resolutions to understanding the social values, intellectual values, all that. This means 133 were doing something else to making it holy, HOLY. So coming to a very basic idea of education is to add values is, first of all, teachers should imbibe these values, because values are not taught, values are caught. It is said, if teachers will start imbibing those values, will try to appreciate. You were talking about, Generation X, Y, Z and all, Alpha. There is one interesting word nowadays, buzzword, FOMO, fear of missing out. Now in the stress situation, every student has this feeling of fear of missing out. Teachers should ensure that every child feel that he or she is important. And just telling them, not only telling them, with them experiencing, with them working upon certain kind of projects, certain kind of social work, certain kind of outreach programs, where they are involving into those values which will imbibe. In classroom, you can't teach value. Being honest, honesty is the best policy. If somebody will follow it, literally will come into trouble in this world. So we need to tell them honesty means a very wholesome word, which has integrity into it, which has truthfulness into it, which has so many things into it. So imbibing value and making people human being will direct all the inventions towards humanity. You can't predict what kind of speed we want from our trains, cars, all kind of things, and unimaginable. And after 20 years, we will get to know what are the different kind of adverse effect of all this thing. First of all, I would conclude that policymakers should sit after every 2 to 3 years to see, because very dynamic changes are taking place in education and child's mind and whole world. There are so many things. Once we are addressing such things in scientific things, there are certain kind of countries facing the problem of human civilization. This big gap is to be bridged, right from Afghanistan to Japan to United States of America, different kind of things happening. That gap is to be bridged. The education system, the education in world should reach those who want and those who do not want, but we must make them understand that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I would just take Dr. Malenira's perspective on this. When we now holistic development has more become a jargon. Everyone is talking about holistic, but they are not practical. Like it's everything is coming in, falling into curriculum. Like what we were talking about, Dr. Baker. That was the kind of holistic development where we are living that curriculum. We are experiencing it. So even when you're talking about values, we are here sitting and saying that national education policy or policy makers or principals or management should focus on values. Why can't teachers have that thing in them? Why can't that be in condition? Like it should be in them that this is my principle and this is my value system. You need to abide by this. That kind of training to the, here I want to know the training to the educators. So very quickly, if you could, I know I've roped you in, but if you could just
all right.
give one.
I'm too happy to be here, but I have to wind up and go because I have to participate in another webinar. This is a Teachers' Day special. Let me tell you, Devyani, two things. First, have you ever been to a homeopathic doctor? Have you?
Yes, sir. I am in.
Many of you would have, right? You go to the fellow saying that I'm getting migraine. He'll ask you that he'll ask you questions which will appear to be totally irrelevant to you, and you will be at one point of time extremely unhappy with this whole thing, that he's taking too long and asking me all kinds of questions. He's asking me, why do you shake your legs? How often do you do that? What time do you wake up? And what do you do this and what do that? He is trying to get you to say what exactly is your issue and problem. He's trying to understand it rather than telling you that, look, this is your problem. He's trying to hear from you. Now, what I want to summarize by saying here is that today's educator has to provide a platform that values both depth as well as breadth while seeking knowledge. Now, depth. What is depth? Depth focuses on mastery of content. Mastery of content that Mr. Pandey was talking about. Theories, principles, historiography, etc. While breadth hones and cultivates competencies and skills that are transferable to other areas. These include soft skills, including communication skills, critical thinking, analytical reasoning, and problem solving. These are the competencies and skills which need to develop. We must accept, second point, we must accept that teaching is a part of a lifelong learning process. And as a teacher, we have to embrace lifelong learning as a core value. Third point, we must accept that today we don't need to tell the students what to think. We need to tell the students how to think. That is very important. Last point, pedagogy has to ensure intellectual fearlessness and thoughtful leadership. A student should be able to ask you a question fearlessly. This is what I call intellectual fearlessness, right? That is very important, because if you have to get the best out of the student and instill the best in his mind, you first make him comfortable to the extent where he's not scared of asking you a question. So it has to be interactive. No holistic system can exist unless there's interaction between the pupil and the teacher. It's simply impossible to think of any other method. You may have, when we were kids, when I was in school, we had a subject called moral science. We had a subject called nature studies, and so on and so forth. We thought that this was a class where we were supposed to make our cartoons, play knots and crosses, right? So let the student realize the importance of what the student has to do, and then let the teacher facilitate it. So tell him how to think instead of telling him what to think. Let him think. Give him that freedom of thinking. Let him ask questions. Curiosity should not be seen as chaos. The chaos that teachers witness in the class is mostly because of the curiosity of the students, which is never appreciated. And then the whole issue of this breadth and depth together has to come in to ensure that you succeed as a holistic educator. Thank
you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Real insights.
Can I take your leave, and ladies?
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for gracing the panel, and
Mr.
I
Pandey,
really appreciate
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Malay.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful listening to you, sir.
Thank you,
Malay.
Thank you, sir.
Before I move on with this question to Dr. Pandey, I would want to intervene here and take Chaitanyaji's perspective, because most of the time what happens is that when you talk about holistic development, and so that entire thing falls on social science teachers or on English teachers to, it's all about values, it's all about, even if the skill sets, that is confidence, team player, all this. And most of the time, the science teachers are seen juggling with completing their syllabus or probably helping them integrate technology. So what message would you have for science educators to kind of, work towards not just cognitive development in terms of marks, but also shaping that kind of personality and being a part of that bandwagon where they also contribute towards, that is what we've been seeing. I'm just quoting you from personal experience. I can always be wrong. So what is your take on that?
So this was Mahesh ji or me? Who did you ask this question?
I wanted to take, because this was for science teachers. So I thought Chaitanya ji would answer that.
Yeah, Mahesh ji,
before
please go.
And then
go ahead.
The question is for Dr. Pandey, and then it will come to him, rooted through. Yeah.
So you want me to answer first?
Mahesh ji to Chaitanya ji to answer this first.
Yeah. Okay,
So
Chaitanya ji, please go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Okay. So this holistic education is always confused, as rightly pointed by Dr. E.P. Sharma. Of course, there are occasions where the teachers are not able to come up to that level in terms of imparting the holistic education and, of course, the values. See, you are asking about the science teachers. Basically, there has to be some humanities component to the curriculum, and I'm sure that most of the schools will have that. And when the science teachers teach, because now it is the era of science and technology, and there are a lot of applications for a common man, uh, from the perspective of helping them to for in their livelihood. So let me cite one example. Suppose if there is a natural calamity, and now that almost all the people have their Android phones, and how is it possible for a teacher to teach the children? Let it be a physics teacher. How is it possible for them to teach the class on how to predict a weather, or how this weather prediction happens, and how it is possible to possible for the scientists to use the data for giving proper alerts on time. So when you boil down each and every communication, the communication will fundamentally come down to physics. If you look at the way in which the COVID pandemic has taken up different dimensions in the sense that now scientists are learning with a lot of data available. So why is it not that the mathematics teachers are not able to, or why should they stop in using that data so that the children understand, okay, this is the impact. Now let us from different perspective, around 30 to 40% of the school children are not able to access online education. And what is the solution for that? Now when we enjoy, or when we are able to have luxury with laptops and internet connectivity and Zoom or whatever, what is that a common man or a child who is not able to access the resources? So what they should do, the teachers should do, is they have to come up with a solution in the classroom where the students understand what they have, and they are able to compare with the children when they don't have that access to that luxury. See, when you talk about covering up of syllabus, see, let me again emphasize on what Dr. Ashokji said. He very nicely explained about creating projects, or the project-based education, or competition, or case studies. See, if you are able to come up with 1 or 2 projects for one subject, I am 100% sure that the teacher will be able to not only cover up this subject, but also give them a perspective of the real-time application of the concept taught. So these are the ways in which, and if that application is for the society, for example, let us say that the students are asked to design a solution for waste management, or how do they cater to the water scarcity? How is it possible that they can convert, or they can do rainwater harvesting? And how is it possible to use that water? How is it possible from a gym to generate electricity by pedaling the cycle? So these kind of innovative ways, when we create thought process, and when the mind starts thinking from innovative direction, I feel that is the crux, or that is the context where the holistic education is actually important. And see, one thing again, let me conclude again. One thing is that the teachers have to be self-learners. Teachers are expected to be self-learners. They should be able to learn things by themselves, and the same skill they should be able to impart with the children, because after the 10th or 12th, they will join a college. After the 12th, after the college, they will join some company for work, and they cannot say that this was not taught as part of the syllabus. They will have to be competent enough in the workplace, and they cannot say that, oh, this was not covered in the curriculum. No, they have to have that self-learning skills, which is very, very crucial. So that is the way in which I think that when you talk about holistic education, it is from all the dimensions. And the best way is experiential learning. bringing the real-time problems, real-time applications into the classroom, relating those issues with the concepts and asking the students to come up with solutions. So then it becomes complete.
Yes, very well said, sir. That they have to ensure that the holistic aspect should go along with the curriculum. Sir, what are your tips, Dr. Pandey? What are your tips? If you could give certain tips to our educators who are viewing, that how can they go beyond the textbooks and make the curriculum holistic
Okay,
and the
thank you.
growth of the yeah.
Okay, Devyani, let me bring a little bit of lighter side to the whole discussion. You have made it very serious for the past couple of hours. You know, my friend AP Sharma said about holistic and holy. I have found an answer in that. If you really become holistic, then you are already a holy person, right? And if you are a holy person, then you don't need to be holistic at all, right? So that is where lies the answer of the whole thing. And, you know, from the contextual point of view of teacher and taught relationship in the schools, you know, Mahesh ji talked about the science, how it can help humanize things, you know. And, you know, the technology and science per se, you know, they don't have a value of their own. They are value neutral things. So value comes to them from the person who is using science and technology, right? So therefore, what Professor Malay said and what Mr. Mahesh is saying, that knowledge, skills, and values, they are interrelated, right? If you have all the knowledge and skill of the world and you do not have the values, you are going to create a disaster, right? Yeah. And you're only having values and no knowledge and skills, you may be a harmless person, but you're not contributing anything to the society, right? So this has to come together. And therefore, the holistic personality, in my opinion, is that the moment you start thinking that whatever I have learned and gained from the society, and I have become a capable person, now how I can use it for others and for the society. That is the beginning of your being holistic and holy both. And that is the crux of the whole education process, right? If even as a young child, you know, if you start thinking that how about those children who have no access to education, I think the holistic thing will come from there. So have you learned the value of sharing and caring and being sensitive for somebody else, right? Yeah. You are all the time in the competition. Can you, you know, love being in collaboration, you know? So that is why the education policy, we're trying to bring about the peer tutoring in it, to bring the holistic part of it, you know, that you start thinking about your friends. Okay, you start taking interest in their development, you start valuing them. Then only you will become holistic. So this is one aspect of it. The other aspect, of course, is that, you know, our children, some of them are very studious. So they only want to read books. Okay, how about their physical strength? Some of them are only into sports and video games and all that. How about a quiet moment to do something which gives them happiness? Okay. How about a moment where they can help somebody and that nourishes their soul? And that is why we have to bring activities, we have to bring programs and exposures where their physical health is taken care of, their mental health is taken care of, their emotional health is taken care of, and their spiritual health is also taken care of, right? This 2 years of pandemic, what we are saying, forget about the cognition part, take care of their emotional part, you know, their mental health part. That is more important now because that has gone into a deficit. Whosoever was able to be connected on internet, at least they have got some cognitive learning, right? The whole lot of population has not got the access. That is a different problem and we have to handle it differently. But even those who were technologically connected, they have suffered socio and emotionally, and their mental health is a bigger issue. So holistic education, in my opinion, has got two aspects. the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual on one hand. On the other hand, how much education is making them humane rather than mechanized. So that is the difference that educators have to appreciate and respond to. Devyani.
Thank you so much. I was just hearing and actually writing it down, points which you've shared, which are so complete that, you're in a profession, which we always call a noble profession. And it becomes noble when you step into the profession with a desire to give back to the society. And very well,
Devyani, can I comment?
Yes, absolutely, sir. Absolutely. In fact, yes.
Since thank you so much. Since Pandeyji told about holy and holy, it's a very interesting thing that we learn best values when we are under pressure. The one pressure is a moral pressure that the teaching environment and the family environment is such that we are bound to learn values. And the teachers bound to learn technology and everything. So the best teacher award for 2021 will go to the Corona, who has taught us lot many family values and teachers have become more efficient. Thank you.
Actually, I think very beautifully and a good punch that Corona has become the best teacher who has taught us so many lessons. Each one, I think each one, not just teachers, everybody has somewhere reflected and reinvented themselves. So insightful this webinar has been. And anyways, I want to take one last bite of Dr. Kurian as well, because then otherwise he will think that I'm not done justice.
Not at all.
To his.
Not at all.
No. But,
Look,
I just saw.
Not at all. The senior most scholars are explaining all the things, and it's a learning for me as well as a beginner.
Anything you want to share on this? Because I did feel that
it is profoundly explained by Dr. A.P. Sharma, Maheshwara, Ashok Pandey, Dr. Ashok Pandey. So nothing much to say. The holistic approach means it should be imbibing the values, as the panelists rightfully told. First, the teacher should imbibe the values. Then only he can inculcate those values to the students. So holistic approach, it should be not only inculcating your values, but also the empathy. Usually we used to sympathetic to others. It should not be, it should be empathetic. Yeah. So those things has to be inculcated from the grassroots level. So if somebody is going to the higher institution and and the professors are teaching about morals and values, it won't make any sense. So it should start from the grassroots level, and that is holistic all about. So nothing more to say. Almost every point in the macro level and the micro level has been explained.
Right, very well said. And this has been an extremely enriching session with the industry experts, the stalwarts, the diggage in the field of education, gracing the panel of today. It was an honor for me to host each one of you today. Moving on to one important announcement. In honor of teachers everywhere, we present to you the anniversary edition of our monthly newsletter, Headlines Today, a special newsletter for educators. It showcases the philosophies and experiences of edu leaders. It's a newspaper for each and every educator to express and learn and go beyond. Our September edition features prominent educationists alongside the entries received in the Teacher in Me contest. You can download the newspaper through the link shared in the chat box. We had this time Educator of the Month as one of our esteemed panelists, Dr. Maheshwara Chaitanya. Can we focus on the page, please? So every time we have this page, which is the most close to my heart, which is a very celebrated page. And this year's page is dedicated to Professor Maheshwara Chaitanyaji. And moving on to the next huge thing. And now the most awaited time arises, the time to announce the winners of the Teacher in Me contest. We are overwhelmed by the responses received from across the globe. More than 77 educators shared their experiences on something they learned in the digital era that changed. Sorry, 277, I'm so sorry, era that changed their outlook. Each experience was interesting, and it was really difficult for us to choose the winners. After rating on several parameters, our esteemed jury has come to a unanimous decision. Our jury comprised of Mrs. Anuradha Handa, Principal G.D. Goenka Public School, Ms. Priyanka Bhatkoti, Principal Max Fort, and Ms. Charu Meni, Principal DAV Public School. And the first prize, may we flash the picture of the winner. The first prize of the gift hamper by Gaia, worth rupees 5,000, goes to Ms. Amita Shukla of St. Anandram Jaipuria School, Lucknow. Congratulations, ma'am. We will be soon exhibiting your philosophy. The second prize of a gift hamper by Rang, worth 3,000, goes to Miss Anju Gupta, Alcon International School, Delhi. That is, I think, Sir's school. And
thank you. Thank you.
This is Miss Anju Gupta. Congratulations, ma'am. And special prize sponsored by GS Diet Culture goes to Ms. Sunanda Vishish, Bal Bharti Public School, Rohini, Delhi. Congratulations to all our winners. To reach out to us, keep writing and keep getting inspired by reading headlines today. And now, last but not the least, there was another contest that was a quiz on Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, the renowned quintessential teacher. Many educators took part in the quiz, and we select from the people who answered most number of questions correctly. May we begin spinning the wheel? We can, so the wheel is stopped on Dr. Manu Charling. Dr. Manu Charling, congratulations. And now, as all good things come to an end, so is this session coming to an end. Thank you so much, each of our esteemed panelists, for gracing this occasion. You are truly quintessential educators in the true sense of the word. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Devyani. Congratulations.
Devyani.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
brother.
you.
Thank you all the fellow panelists.
Nice meeting you. Yeah,
Yeah.
Dr. Beno. And
Thank you,
AP,
sir.
it doesn't appear to me that you are already in Doha.
Yes, yes.
So
Thank you,
AP was
Devyani.
here last week only, and suddenly he flew to Doha.
It was very nice. We had Dr. Pandey invited me for a dinner. So,
It was completely coincidental. We were following you, Dr. Sharma, from a long time. You know, I've been reaching out to you on LinkedIn, and finally we got you. That's the way EduDay's culture runs. You're another feather in the EduDay's cap. We welcome you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Kurian, I would love to have your number with me now so that we can we can interact on one-on-one basis.
Sure.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank
Thank you so much.